You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow it down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello, welcome back in after a long absence. We are
Yeah,
back
let's talk
with
some
the Wheelhouse.
hoops. We're here.
Finally. We got the holidays are over. It's the middle of January already. We're flying through the season. 14th officially today. We got plenty to talk about. I had to segregate parts of the wheel into other sections to fit more topics on there. So we're gonna get right into it. We got plenty to get to.
All right. Ready, set, here we go.
So just a check-in follow-up on how we feel about the rookie class as it's developed. There's been a lot of injuries here and there to some guys. Bagley's just getting back now, so we just wanted to gauge how you guys rank the top rookies in the class. I think it's probably unanimous across all bases that Doncic is the number one guy, but it starts to get interesting after that. Mike, start us off. How do you rank your top
Okay,
guys?
obviously Doncic is tops.
Yes.
I'm a little bit not as hyped on him as some other people are, even though I think he's tremendous.
Yep.
I'm seeing too many comparisons to Bird, and I don't like that.
Yep.
And anyways, my other guys, I'm 8 and still stays number 2 to me.
Yep.
I've moved Jared Jackson up to number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I after seeing that game against the Celtics and watching him, I think he's got some skills that really tremendous. He's bigger than I thought. He posts up well. He still has a shot. I think he's the third one. And then my other one that maybe is a surprise is I've seen him play a couple of times now, and he's out injured. He'll be back. I think Mo Bamba's a player. Mm-hmm. And I love how he runs. I love how he's in the flow of the game. He's only playing like 12, 13 minutes a game, so you don't really see. Vukovic has played so well. There's not a lot of room there. Isaacs is getting some time now for Bamba to play, but I think Bamba is a player waiting to happen. I really like him a lot. So, and then I would say Trae Young's my number 5.
Yeah. I like most of that top 5. I don't think Bamba has done enough, and a lot of it is because of time, but I think that maybe is partially a fault of his own that he isn't getting out there.
Behind Vucevic.
Right.
But he seems so aware when he's on the court.
He was always going to be, out of the top 10 picks, he was always more of a project than the other players selected around him, and it was more crucial for him in the success of his career that he went to a team that would be able to either cultivate strong principles and tactics, whether it would be learning behind a good veteran or having good coaching or just having a good culture overall. And I'm nervous that there aren't enough of those elements there to help him. I do like what I see out of him at some points. It happens too rare and far between that I don't think I don't
Would
even
you
have
agree
him,
that
I don't have him in my top 10.
He looks like he's progressing.
Yes, he's gotten better, but I mean, he could still be a very strong player, and it says a lot about the depth of this class that I don't
love his
have him in my top 10.
instincts.
He
I
could
love
be
his drive.
a defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, I mean, even that, there's plenty of guys that I would have over him. What about you? What other guys do you have?
I really like that top 5, but Bamba wouldn't quite make it. I think Colin Sexton has really picked it up a lot lately. Mm-hmm. He turns the ball over a lot, but he's also being asked to do almost as much, if not more, than any other rookie. Because he's handling the ball and taking more shots than most
who are
other
you moving
rookies.
instead of Bamba into your top 5?
Oh, I
hear Colin Sexton.
I don't have Bamba in my top 10.
I know, but I'm saying,
I'll get to it.
you haven't.
I also don't have Colin Sexton in my top 10. And again, I think Colin Sexton has shown a lot of things that in the beginning of the year we were nervous about. And he did have a hot stretch there right after Ty Lue left the boat with Larry Drew coming into play and him being essentially handed the keys. He has fallen off a little bit since then, and what you say is correct. But I think that team is so awful, and that
could be recency bias.
Without Kevin Love, that is easily the worst team in the league. And when the game rotation is completely up in the air, and we see Colin Sexton could lose minutes to Jordan Clarkson, or he could lose minutes to Dellavedova, depending on what game it is.
He coexists pretty well with Clarkson.
Yeah,
but
I really don't
I think a guy. How about this?
Okay.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yes.
If the Clippers don't have him, I don't know if they're meshing as well as they have been, and they're legitimately top 5 in the West. So.
Well, it's something interesting with
that's a good point.
To compare Shai with Colin Sexton. If you looked at these guys just in a vacuum statistically, you could make arguments that Colin Sexton is producing at a higher level than Shai. But when you watch these games, in the games where Shai isn't appearing on the box score, and where on the flip side Colin is, Shea is impacting the game in a chemistry standpoint, in a flow of the game standpoint. He's moving the ball. He's defending at a high level. He's deferring shots from even being attempted to a degree. And I like what I have him. So my top 10, I think the top 3 is clear. I think it is Doncic, Ayton, Jackson, just as
It's
you
amazing
said.
that Jackson's moved
And-
that high now, and
yeah.
everybody's list, all that, even the haters are turning
Right.
on him.
I think he has proven himself. He in the past 2 weeks or so, he has had a rocky stretch, but I do think that he deserves the appreciation to have him there. I have a surprise pick at 4. My 4th best rookie is Kevin Huerter. I think that he has been really, really, really remarkable in what I've seen in this stretch that has been without Torian Prince, granted, and without Bazemore. But he's stepped up and he's shown an acumen to be able to score as a creator and a catch-and-shoot off-ball player. I like him a lot more defensively than I was expecting. Based off the scouting report and the very small amount of film that I saw of him at college, I didn't think he was a plus defender, but he looks like he might be an above-average-ish defender. I think overall he's really exceeded in obviously this Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, and I have Trae Young as my 5 right behind Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, Huerter is your 4.
Yes, even
And yet Bamba doesn't make your top 10.
no, even with those two guys being a very like diet version of a futuristic shooting, maybe a Clay Steph light type of lineup, I'm really liking what I'm seeing from those two guys, and knowing that this team is being such a heavy emphasis on youth.
Yep.
And on really making sure they're employing a good culture with Lloyd
And they're
Pierce,
winning some games.
who I think very highly of. They are being competitive. They won a great game with John Collins, hit a game winner over Philadelphia. And it really is with this young core at the fulcrum of it. And I think that they're going to add another piece next year because obviously they're going to be a bottom 5 team. I think that this is a team that you need to watch down the line. And I think that this Atlanta Hawks team is going to be my team to watch for the 2019-2020 season. And I think that I don't think they're going to be a playoff team. They could be, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're arousing interest similar the way that the Sacramento Kings are this year.
They're fun to watch, and I think Vince Carter's had a really good
he's
impression
yes,
on the
exactly.
younger kids. I watched a special on them. I think it was on NBA TV, and just seems like they're all in.
Yeah.
They have a lot of team unity, 1, 2, 3 family.
Yes.
But they also they practice really hard. And they
A
really
little bit on
enjoy it.
Doncic, just no reason not to talk about him. He's been so phenomenal with what he's doing. The slight drawbacks I have to him is that I think that he needs to lose some weight and he needs better conditioning. At 1920, I think he's a little. When I saw him play against Celtics, the whole game, I put him on my slow-mo team. And on my slow-mo team, Jokic makes it, and it's not like they're not good players, but I think he's a little slow-mo. When I look at the comparison to Larry Bird, obviously I don't want to hear it, but there's things that Larry Bird was much quicker than Doncic. Larry Bird's decision-making was much quicker than Doncic, and Larry Bird on defense filled passing lanes in a way that you don't see Doncic doing. I wonder whether that lack of that slow motion bit that he's got a little bit is going to end up down the line where he's going to need a point guard and he's not going to be the point guard.
See, I take that more as like he's so smooth and he's got such good vision that he doesn't have to have that quick first step because he could outsmart you. So I don't think he really needs speed.
Yeah.
Same for Jokic. I mean, Jokic is a legitimate
Yeah,
MVP candidate.
I
We'll talk
really-
about him later.
I think that
I stand corrected on Jokic.
I think Doncic is just he's uncharacteristic archetype for a successful player in the NBA, and because he's so peculiar in his strengths, I think that maybe you're just conditioned to see the lack of certain types of athleticism in terms of speed or quickness. But I mean, he has similar to a James Harden, he has that shiftiness and the deceleration types of athleticism that
change the speed.
that goes kind of under the radar.
Yep.
I think I agree with you. He could use to lose weight and get more in shape, and I think that will come. Again, he's 19.
Well, it's
and
odd.
he's-
let's
he
just
would
go
go
with the freshman 15.
most guys coming in too thin and they got to put on some weight. Here's a
Right,
guy that comes in and he actually that's
You
different.
see Kelly
makes
Oubre smash
and then they
the
torched him.
floor, and then
Well, Doncic has been remarkable.
How do you like his victory
Doncic
dances?
scored on
Yeah,
him.
he's great. Weird dancing. Yeah.
Oh God. It's awful.
So the second half of my top 10 for rookies, just to finish it out, I have Bagley at 6. He's been struggling with the injuries that don't seem very serious.
back. He's played
Curtis
3 games
Holden,
now.
Right. And then I got Shea at 7. And then I have Mikal Bridges, who's rise for me on Phoenix. I
Yep.
think that he's filled a great role and proven that just being a strong 3-and-D player gets you minutes in this league and deserves rotation.
Just in
heavy
case you don't
rotation
say
minutes.
him, how about Shaman?
Shamet had a big game with 8 threes.
you
but
have him in your 10?
I don't
No.
have him in my
Okay.
top 10. He's very inconsistent. But
Yeah.
my top 10 is finished out with Wendell Carter,
Okay.
who seems to be struggling in
Forgetting him a
terms
little
of
bit.
meshing with Boylan and with what Boylan wants from him because no one really knows what Boylan wants. And then
That's a G League team.
right, my 10th slot is uncharacteristic pick. I put D'Anthony Melton at 10.
Okay.
Defensively,
I like
I
that.
think that he and Jaren Jackson are the top defenders in this draft so far. What I'm seeing from him on the defensive end and his ability to guard 1 through 3 and his ability to get blocks around the rim, his ability to get steals in the backcourt. He's picking up full courts and he's stealing the ball before the offensive player can get the ball across the half-court line. I've been really impressed with him. I think that once Booker can actually stay on the court for a strong amount of time without getting injured, I think that they can really build a good rapport together because you begin to see it when the two of them are playing together, but they haven't had enough time put on logged yet really to mesh completely. But I love what I'm seeing from Melton, and I think that he has a strong future in the league.
It's funny that this list hasn't really wavered that much
not
throughout the year.
Well, no, Jackson.
I
mean,
there haven't
there are a
been too
lot
many
of
people that
Jackson
like-
haters, including Shed. You
Yeah, I
both-
was
both of you
down.
guys,
I was
and
very down
I
on
think
him.
I bought into Logan, definitely a Jackson hater.
Well,
He's come a long way.
I was very down on him.
But I mean, like the rankings themselves haven't
Yeah.
really fluctuated that much, and nobody's really come out of the woodwork to.
No, I mean it's a
knock
very
our
deep
socks off.
very deep rookie class, and the infusion of talent over year after year with these past.
Let's
few
go
wins
get a
has
lot to
spoiled
talk
us.
about.
Yeah, I agree.
Got a lot to talk about.
A quick spin.
Dunk contest participants.
right.
Okay,
Quick one. Ready?
Quick
I
one.
got Derek Jones Jr., Dennis Smith Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Miles Bridges.
I got Donovan Mitchell. I want him coming back. I got Giannis. I can't see why we don't get Giannis in there. I want to see him in there. Oladipo, Montrezl Harrell. I'd love to see Montrezl Harrell in there. What a powerful dunker he is. And Jason Tatum.
I think power gets overrated for actual visual excitement, and I think
With Montrezl Harrell?
yeah, well, just in terms of how it would translate to a dunk contest. And
Yeah,
you
maybe.
You see it with big men too. That's why I think Giannis doesn't work that well. I mean, historically, the little guy makes things look more impressive. Dunk contest.
Of course, I got Donovan Mitchell again. Bring him back, defend the championship. But I like Kyle Kuzma. He's been throwing it down lately.
It's crazy.
I'm big on him.
You can spin it.
Hey, how about Bo Bob?
Bo Bob again. Big guys
Put
don't
Bo Bob
succeed.
in there?
Big guys do not succeed.
I'd be down with that.
So the LeBron, Lakers, since LeBron hurt his groin pop on Christmas Day on a big win against the Warriors, the Lakers have played 10 games. They're 3-7 in those games. They were tied for 3rd in the conference when LeBron went down on Christmas. Since then, they have dropped. They're now tied for 8th with the Jazz.
Yep.
We've seen strong games from Kuzma. We've seen some good games from the other 3 core, but overall, the core 4 of Kuzma, Ball, Ingram, and Hart hasn't played well enough to really translate into winning basketball. The efficiency is really, really bad. Ingram is the only one who's shooting above 41%. He's shooting 46. Kuzma, Ingram, and Hart are all shooting below 30% from 3 in this stretch. Surprisingly, Lonzo is actually shooting 38. His shot from 3 has actually started to be coming along. And then from the line even, which we saw being a huge struggle in the Cleveland game, these guys can't hit anything from the free throw line.
Lonzo.
And it's terrible. Lonzo doesn't shoot that
worse
many,
than
but he's
Shaq.
terrible. He's shooting 26%. It's on very low volume. But even Ingram's 59, and both Kuzma and Hart are below 74. So efficiency is clearly a problem, and we see it dramatically dip with LeBron not there. Maybe it's because the flow of the offense is more clogged. Beginning of the year, there was a big storyline about how Ingram played with LeBron and without LeBron. And yes, statistically in this stretch, Ingram is averaging 18 points. He's averaging close to 7 rebounds. But you can tell that it's more force-fed than good basketball and promising out of Ingram. What do you see from these guys? Is it nervous? Do they need to hit the panic button? Does LeBron need to come back even though he's not 100%?
I think they've been taking things for granted. They don't know how to play without him.
Yes.
And they don't play with a sense of urgency, which is very annoying. And then they go through these stretches that the Cavaliers also go through, where it's like one guy gets a little hot, and all of a sudden he's taking the shot every single time down the floor. And then once he misses a couple, then another guy will start taking every single shot for 4 or 5 trips down, and you're shooting 54% from free throws most of the game.
killing
And then in the fourth quarter,
But fans are booing their
against the-
foul shots.
Against the Cavaliers, I think they
was
missed
terrible.
like 13, 14 just in the fourth quarter.
They missed 14 exactly.
And Mike Fratello from NBA TV, he was like, it just doesn't seem like, you know, they really had their foot on the gas until it was 4 minutes left in the game.
they were down
and they
15 in the first
realized they might
quarter.
lose to the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I think Ball, Kuzma, and Ingram have been exposed minimally for not being ready.
Yes.
They're not ready.
Right.
So for whatever reason, I mean, Lonzo Ball. I mean, how can you shoot foul shots like that? I mean, it looks like he's moved his shot. He's got a better shot. Yet that turns out that's really a negative on him that
And
he
he has
shoots
come
like
along
that.
shooting from the
Kuzma
three,
is
too.
very inconsistent.
My question is, why doesn't Lonzo Ball have a routine? You know,
That's true
He doesn't.
too.
He doesn't have
You,
any
you
Everybody's
know,
gonna have-
the little spin, the
Absolutely.
Jeff Hornacek,
Something.
something to take your mind off. I might just miss this free throw. It looks like he just wants to get it over with.
Yeah, and then Ingram is. All I can say about him is who knows on him. I think
think
a
he
couple of things on him though.
Ingram's
They
such an
they're 3 and
upside
7.
guy.
They haven't even had a tough schedule.
No,
I mean
they
they've had the Knicks, they've had the Cavs, they got the Bulls at home coming up. Then they got to go play OKC, Houston, and Golden State on the road. So if LeBron's, the other point I would make on them is Walton seemed more like Ty Lue to me than Steve Kerr. And he sounded more like a player to me than a coach as I'm hearing him.
Yeah, he's good at making disappointed-looking faces, but I don't think he's that good at coaching a team of young players.
I don't know whether that's working.
I don't think that he should take too much blame because I think it is more on these young players that we were hoping. In the beginning of the season, it was a tour for LeBron saying, we know they're not going to win the championship this year. This year is about finding which players mesh well with LeBron, finding out who that number one guy is. We're hoping it's going to be Ingram, trying to make sure that this is an attractive enough destination outside of LeBron James for other marquee free agents to want to go to, and potentially packaging guys that don't fit in a deal so that they can become more reputable of a playoff option this season and in the future. And this year, it's unnerving because all four of those guys, even though there has been sparks, their value has decreased since what it has been in the beginning.
That's the point.
I love Lonzo Ball in terms of long-term upside. I think that he fits great with LeBron James. His defensive acumen is already very, very top-notch in terms of a perimeter defender in the league. It's just offensively, his shot comes and goes. Obviously, he's scared to go around the rim because now his free throw things are just in the basement. And Kuzma, he's put up a 40-point game, and he can go nuclear. And his 40-point game was almost in 3 quarters. And he's exciting, and I think that he probably fits.
40 is the new 20, by the way.
Oh,
Everyone's
wow.
putting up
yeah,
40s.
when you see this 145, 151 to 37 games.
He fits better with LeBron than I think any of the other 4. I think Kuzma has earned a place on a LeBron team, but he hasn't proven that he's going to be a second fiddle. He's proven that he could be a good 4th player. So it's the expectation has really just shifted 2 steps below than what people were hoping and maybe even believing that it was going to be. Josh Hart has proved that he's going to be a good energy bench player when they were hoping he would have upside as a strong defensive starter. So I think
What's scary to me, though, is like people like Josh Hart and Contavious Caldwell-Pope are all of a sudden playing better without LeBron.
Well, Caldwell-Pope has played good, actually.
Whereas like 5 or 6 other players are not playing well without LeBron at all. So it's like some of them don't like LeBron's presence.
Well, the team is a complete rocky road of unusual characters. I mean, Caldwell-Pope was having a horrendous season, but as soon as LeBron went down, he had like a 4 or 5 game stretch where he was getting 20 plus on high efficiency. His shot was starting to fall. And I was like, hey, maybe this is good. He can play out some more games. They can pair him with Brandon Ingram in a pick, and maybe they could get Bradley Beal. And it's just like, but then you watch 3 more games, and then the Wizards aren't going to do that trade. That would be ridiculous. So what is the solution for this team? I'm nervous that because of the inability for these young core to take the next step, I'm nervous that moving forward, that's going to hurt their chances to bring in anyone reputable in free agency.
I'm nervous that LeBron's 34 years old, and sooner or later that body's going to. And I know he's amazing. You know, one point I would make on this that I think is probably everybody would agree with, and I don't know whether it's going to carry out. And I know it's on the board somewhere else, but how valuable is LeBron James?
Yes.
Oh my God! Is there any, without question, is anybody more valuable than LeBron James? I mean, look at the difference between that team.
Steph Curry, of course.
Oh yes, okay.
Because when he goes out, you see it too. But some people you don't know what you got.
But this team is not very good. No. They're down to Cleveland by 15 in the first quarter. Yet with LeBron, they beat Golden State.
Well, that's exactly the point. And because of how convoluted and tight and how much of a mirage that essentially 2 through now it's less of 14. Now it's more so 10.
Yeah. Well, they won
seeds
3 to 8.
are exactly. If you go on a 10-game stretch where you go in 3 and 7, that's going to hurt you a lot in terms of what your playoff standings are. And if LeBron doesn't come back soon, this team is not going to be a home court playoff
it's up in the air when he's coming back.
They're going to risk having to really be fighting till the end of the season to be even a 7 or 8 seed. I don't think that they're going to miss because I think if it came down to it and they continue to lose games, LeBron would come back not at 100% health just to make the playoffs, and he could do that. It's just that this season, a small LeBron groin injury is just really, really, really showcasing that they're far less further along than probably LeBron was hoping, and everyone in media assumed that they were. And I think that they should try to trade Ingram because Ingram clearly fits the least well with LeBron James, and I think he could succeed if he was in a different environment because I see things out of Ingram that I like. he has a certain move where he's driving to the hoop, where he drives wide and he puts it behind his head, and his
he's
arms
got
are so long
tremendous
that he can't
skills.
get blocked. He has like an unstoppable move.
But he's aloof.
He
He's an
is
enigma.
too aloof. It's unnerving, and I think that LeBron needs to come back as soon as possible, or else they're at risk of having to fight until game 82 to make the 8
I think
seed.
Rajon Rondo's also very important on that team because
Yeah,
he
it's-
gives
they
him
missed
somebody
him.
else that solidifies things, and he played really well in that Golden State game before he went out. So
Yeah, I think they'd be 7-3, 6-4 without LeBron if they had Rondo.
That's interesting. All right, the Boston Celtics are a very exciting team to pay attention to.
Yep.
We are now 25-17, right on that 4-5 seed cusp of being a home court team in the playoffs. We went on a very strong stretch where things were looking promising, starting with a win over Minnesota a couple weeks ago, where Gordon Hayward went in and showed up again. And followed up with 3 wins in a row against Dallas, Brooklyn, and our best win probably this season, even though Miles Turner was out, against Indiana. And things were looking like they were clicking, and the fan base was getting excited, and all of the topics were about speaking towards continuing to progress. And then we hit a slog in Miami, and we kind of fell apart in Orlando. So it's really hard to really draw any strong conclusions from this team. And we've been all over the headlines in terms of Kyrie being a little dramatic in terms of his end of game. His indifference towards Brad's decision to have the play be an option play where he isn't the number 1 option, even though he was an option. Him being upset at Gordon Hayward for not passing the ball to Al Horford on that rundown where he's coming full speed at Al. Him continually, after every single loss, Kyrie always mentions the young guys. And it's getting to a point where I understand he has something to say, and it matters, but maybe that needs to be more internal. And I think that what he's saying isn't necessarily wrong, but he's new to the leadership game. He's new to the leadership game.
He's not very good at
He's
leadership.
trying.
He's learning.
He's trying.
He's got more to
trying.
learn in that area
Yes.
than these other
Well,
players
well,
got to
he's-
learn where he sees
And
they got to
he's
learn.
trying, and his game has taken so many steps to becoming a complete player. And he's been really, really awesome on the court this year. And it's really unusual to watch that battle for him where he is succeeding so well and taking the next step in terms of what he is as an NBA player and trying to pair that with being the next step for his team off the court. And I think he's struggling there. And I like that he's trying to be a leader, but it's not working, I don't think. And then also, on top of that, we got Marcus Morris and Jaylen Brown shoving each other on the bench. So what do you think about this Celtics team? Do you think they can pull it together and be a home court team?
I got a bottom line on this,
Okay.
and my bottom line is there's not a team I'd rather be than the Boston Celtics in that league. No, but bar none. There's not a coach that can coach them better than Stevens can coach this on all the talent they've got. There's not a general manager that can manage the assets they got better than Danny Ainge. I was at the University of Virginia Boston College game, and Danny Ainge sat right in front of me, right here, and he was there to see DeAndre Hunter, and it just rings a bell. They have so many options when you look at it. I mean, I'll just throw an off-the-wall one. I mean, they could get Zion if they wanted to. They could wait till the whoever's picking, and they could trade their assets for Zion. They could get KD. They could get Butler. There's so much going on that can be done on that team that, to me, the bottom line is there's nobody I'd rather be than the Celtics. And if it doesn't play out this year, I can accept that.
Yes.
I think Kyrie's made a couple errors here, and one of them is that he constantly, as he's playing his leader, right from the beginning, as he really came out with all his statements, he said, I can do anything I want on a basketball court.
Right.
Meaning the other guys can't, and that I am allowed to do things. I think that he's wrong about Tatum and Rozier, and maybe even Brown. Brown deserves to be taken to task by Marcus Morris for not getting back on defense.
Yes.
Ainge has done the same thing to him. Brad says the same thing. He says, we cannot allow our energy to be dictated by missing shots. Our defensive energy cannot be dictated by how we do on the offense. But Kyrie is wrong. Tatum and Rozier and Brown, they prospered under pressure. They played well under pressure. They went to, within one game, he's got to understand that it's him that's got to plug back into them. And he should have been looking at them as an entity that is really strong, and he should have been plugging into them. Instead of saying that, look, I can do whatever I want on a basketball court, and you guys have got to learn how to play off me, which I think is probably, and I leave it to Stevens. Stevens can manage this thing, and I'm all for it. But I don't think Kyrie is as much of an alpha as he thinks he is. And that, LeBron, he wants to be LeBron. And I got nothing wrong with Kyrie, but I wish he would take a step back. I want to return to Al Horford leading this team.
Well, Al Horford
And-
has
and
always been a
I
silent
know,
leader,
but
and
I mean,
Kyrie's-
and even Marcus Morris, I understand, but can't Kyrie do it without talking so much?
I just think he doesn't know
His
how.
preaching is
I
going to
think-
wear out. It's going to wear real thin. His preaching is already wearing thin.
Yeah.
One more thing, and Sloan
ahead.
can talk, is that yes, when he got down on Hayward, I didn't like that at all. But to me, what was worse was when he was in Brad's face when Brad was blowing the inbounds play. That's not his spot to be in there. He should not have been. That Brad's got a job to do, and he's very, very good at it. He doesn't need Kyrie getting vocal with him as he's about to send the guys back on the court. So he's making some mistakes.
I think on a cohesive level, it's not going to work until he realizes he's got nothing to be insecure about.
Exactly.
Like
That's
we
a good
all
point.
we all
That's a
know
good
that
point.
he is capable of being the best scorer in the league, and I think his teammates would say the same thing. But maybe his teammates are just done with this inflated ego thing, and they want a little credit too. Like you said, they've been there. They've been in the second to last round of the playoffs, making
And did the job.
seriously,
played
serious
with
damage,
intensity.
almost getting to the big dance at the end. And
one
I
point
think
while I'm think-
they're
go
just
ahead.
not meshing. They're just not meshing.
One point,
together.
Shay, well,
It's like an
I'm
identity
thinking about it that I
crisis.
think is really valid, and I saw it in the stats, and I'm not into metrics as much as a lot of guys are. I'm old school on that stuff, but it is a fact, and you watch it tonight, because Kyrie's not playing tonight.
No.
And,
Neither is Marcus Smart.
I don't like that. But the fact is that per 100 possessions, they make 30 less passes when Kyrie plays than when he doesn't play. And when that is true, Shay.
No, it is.
And,
No, I know.
and I see it, and to me, that's not Brad ball the same way. When watch it tonight, when Rozier and I don't like Smart being out. When those are guys, the ball moves better. That 30 passes, those passes have got to come from somewhere, and they should be able to. They need those 30 passes that they're not getting. It's not that Kyrie doesn't play his game. I mean, he just takes a couple more dribbles, a little bit more time, and the ball's 30 less passes per 100. I want those 30 passes back in, and it becomes Brad ball.
There was a stretch in this 4-game win streak, and I think it was included in maybe the 3 games before that, and where there was a loss, but I just wrote down because of the win streak. But in those, I think it was a 7-game stretch where we were averaging over 30 passes a game, and
30
or
assists.
30 assists a game,
Yep.
and we were passing the ball really well, even with Kyrie on the floor. And I think
We
that,
had 2 games with him out,
right, and I think that.
and we're
when-
3-1
when
with him out.
Kyrie is a really, really interesting player to focus on in terms of him being re-implemented back into the team. His mentality, his thought process, how he plays on the court, how he meshes on the court, how he thinks he meshes on the court, how he thinks he meshes off the court.
Yep.
Everything is so interesting. Some things work, some things don't work. I think that you're saying that he should be the one that's reinfused, not that the team should fit with him. I agree with that, but I think he's doing
think it would help the team.
I think he's doing a above average job at that on the court. It's just off the
Yeah.
court. I don't know if he sees that he's doing a good job. I think he
Right.
sees that he's carrying the team and the team is falling short, when in reality, the team is playing good basketball. It's just that there's not a cohesive, consistent effort from every single player, and sometimes players are falling short. It's degrading for the teammates,
Yes.
and it's hypocritical. I don't want to call Kyrie hypocritical, but it is coming from a player who left a situation with an all-time great in LeBron James because he was getting patronized, or he was getting told to do things, and because he was the underling in the situation.
Yep.
And he was
There you go.
being directed as a young player who was taking too many shots and didn't know how the game worked. And that was him, and that aggravated him. And it frustrates me that he doesn't see that same perspective that he lived, and that frustrated him so much that he requested a trade away from LeBron
And I
James.
think
How can he not see that
Yeah, no,
same?
absolutely. I
And
think
if you
Sloan's
look
on
at-
target. Sloan is saying it. That he's not ready to be the lead. He's got a lot to learn
Yes.
about how to lead.
If he keeps trying to alienate his teammates, he's going to end up with nobody in
Right.
New York,
Right.
and
And who
LeBron's going to
knows?
have nobody
I mean,
in
you're-
LA.
You're
So
starting
we're
to
going
hear
to
that
have
there's
two
a
places
division
that should be
between.
meccas.
You're starting to hear there's a division between the young players and the old players. And I don't buy any of this because I think
No,
Ainge and
no.
Stevens have got it all over. How do you like Paul Pierce's analogy, where he's making the analogy of James Harden when he was with OKC in terms of Tatum and Rozier and Brown, that they're both hiding inside the depth. That their talent is being hidden inside the depth of the Celtics, just like Harden's was being hidden inside of OKC.
Well,
maybe not hiding as
But
much.
Tatum could.
Yes, but
Tatum
you
could.
see stretches like the.
We've already talked about how
Miami-
Tatum could be a future
Yeah,
MVP.
we
Yeah,
see the
but there's
stretches
this
of
depth burying them in a sense.
we see stretches against Miami where Tatum scores the first 11 of the first 13 points, and he's nuclear and he's hitting high difficulty shots.
He came
and-
out too early in
and
that
no
game.
and no one can stop him. But then he disappears throughout the rest of the game. I think that I agree that to a degree that all three of those players would be 20-point per game scorers if they played on the Orlando Magic. But it's just like that's being able to funnel that in the right way and have them understand their role to be able to maximize themselves and be happy about it, it's a difficult task.
It is.
And,
We said that from the beginning.
And
Brad's got
right,
that task.
Yes, he has that task, and maybe we thought he could do a better job than he has. Not that he's done a bad job.
I think he's done a great
Not
job.
That he's done a bad job.
And continues to do a great
but
job.
I don't think he's done a perfect job. We're not coalescing fantastically.
Well,
I mean, going back to like the Marcus Morris Jaylen Brown interaction. Jaylen Brown absolutely deserves to have a player like Marcus Morris get on his case when he doesn't get back on defense
Yes.
after missing something like a layup or missing a jump shot. He gets his head down way too often, and he doesn't pick himself up, and he doesn't maintain the same activity that he should have all game. That interaction, 100% warranted. I like that Marcus Morris did that. If it comes to a shove, who cares? These guys are teammates. What does make me nervous about that is how the teammates reacted. Marcus Smart and Kyrie and Tice, they flew over like they thought it was something that was going to escalate and like they were going to start fighting each other when in reality it was just two teammates, one trying to get another one to try to get back on defense, and the other saying, I am trying, it's just hard because I'm not making my shots.
It was pretty small though because nobody even caught that.
But
It
they
was
pulled
actually,
them apart.
I know, but it was actually a fan that caught that. Nobody, even in the post-game interviews,
there's only
nobody,
one clip.
nobody
There's
had
only one
seen
clip.
it.
Right.
So it was like you didn't see it during the game. You didn't see it. So however that got hidden. It couldn't have been that big if nobody even saw it because Scal would have talked about it, Gorman would have talked about it.
It makes me nervous. Kyrie's continued necessity to harp on the young guys, and I think more often than not he's talking about Terry and Jalen, and because he clearly has a strong rapport with Tatum already. I think that I think those guys have a good relationship. When you watch them interact on the bench, when you watch them interact in the game, whether it's in game situations or whether it's when outside of basketball situations. I'm nervous that Kyrie doesn't like Jalen. I'm nervous that these are two intellectuals on the complete opposite.
Oh, don't say intellectual.
Because
he plays chess on the plane. Here we go again on Jalen, intellectual.
On the complete opposite.
1 year of college.
On the complete opposite side of the intellectual spectrum in terms of what their knowledge base, in terms of what they think about themselves, in terms of how they process things, in terms of how they think about things. Jalen is, I need to have the information. Kyrie is question the information.
They're both odd in their own way.
They're both very unusual, and I'm just nervous that like Kyrie doesn't really like Jalen. And I'm nervous that it's bleeding into the Celtics. And I'm nervous that he continues to harp on this. And I'm nervous that it's festering an environment where Jalen is being even more sensitive to when he doesn't succeed. And that's why he's struggling even more.
Yeah, and I think all of that. And I would say, I would ask both you guys, take Kyrie out of the lineup, play the other guys on that team. From day one to now, would they be a better team?
I think we would be more cohesive.
I think they'd be a better team. I think they would.
Honestly,
they would have won more games.
It's like an NBA
Watch
2K.
them tonight. Watch them tonight.
When you have to keep the team chemistry up.
Yeah, and
you go player to player.
Exactly.
And we got a few of those key players who are down in the dumps.
If you have in 2K, if you have too many players that are rated above 80, some of those guys are going to be frustrated or aggravated in their team chemistry.
Bottom line, I like our position. I love where we are.
I'd rather
we got so much to work with, and we got Ainge to manage that. Wow.
And I've talked about how much I love Marcus Morris, and I think he's had a stupendous year. But I think it's a problem when he's your second best player.
Yes, it is.
When you have five other players who should be probably better than him.
And you got to accept at this point that Hayward is not that player, and he was supposed to be that player, and Morris has been forced into that.
He's
at least accepted his role as a bench player.
And I've reached a threshold with Hayward where my expectations I think are at the right area, and anything positive that I get from Hayward, I'm excited, and I don't get disappointed when Hayward doesn't perform because I understand that my expectations early were way too high, and I'm back down. And we don't need that from him because we have so many high talented players.
We need somebody else.
It's promising. As someone who's following the Celtics and following the Eastern Conference, you look at the Milwaukee Bucks. This team is playing at their absolute ceiling. This team is a fantastic team, a very reputable opponent, a legitimate top 2-3 team in the entire NBA, and they're playing fantastic basketball. The Toronto Raptors are the same exact thing. When they are 100% healthy, they are an awesome team. As long as Kyle Lowry doesn't slump in the playoffs, this team is an extremely legitimate threat. The Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics both are very far from their ceilings. That's why those two teams are way more interesting.
Indiana.
No, yeah, but Indiana is playing at their ceiling as well. Like I don't think that they're not playing.
Well, they've been playing at the ceiling for a while now.
Yeah, but like I'm not scared of Indiana because their ceiling is the fourth best team in the conference.
We thought they hit their ceiling when Oladipo was injured, though, and then he came back. I think they can still hit
So you
better
take
heights.
those 5 teams, Philadelphia, Toronto, Milwaukee, Indiana, and Boston.
Right.
Boston is 5-3 against those teams.
Yes.
Are any of those teams better than 5-3 against those teams?
I think Milwaukee.
They're better than 5-3.
I think Milwaukee and Toronto are both around 5-3.
We've beaten all 4 of those teams at least once. We're 1-1 against 3 of them,
I know
and we're
for a
2-0 against Philly.
I know for a fact Philly is like 1-7 against those
Okay,
five
so
teams.
so we're 5-3. We are standing. We're going to see it again. We're playing Toronto right away, and then we've got a stretch coming up in February. Within 5 games, we play Philly, Milwaukee, and Toronto.
Yep.
And I think that's going to show whether we've made progress. Can we say that we can definitely play with those teams? I mean, we are playing with
The
those teams.
Celtics
aren't
are
we?
like Rondo. They get up for the big games.
Yes, I know.
Well, but in the end,
play
that's
play
going to give us a
Milwaukee- We
shot.
play Milwaukee very well, and we played Toronto up and down, and depending on the night and what we see from the other team, we can absolutely beat that team. But I think that the Celtics are going to finish as the 3 seed, and I think that that's going to be essential to our optimal playoff success.
Yep.
Because if we finish at the 4 or the 5, that's just another slog in terms of a round that we're going to have to max out and go to 6 or 7 games to even get past a team that's very reputable. The difference between the Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers, whereas those other 3 teams are already close to their ceiling, is the 76ers need a trade to get to their ceiling. They're not going to get to their ceiling with their current construction. There's too many limitations on the team in terms of shooting, in terms of wing depth, in terms of all aspects. They have a fantastic big 3. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I think all 3 of those players deserve all-star recognition, and they're the only team out of those top 5 that I think has more than 2. So they're a very interesting team, but the Celtics, they just need to play better. They just need to figure out each other out a little bit. Hopefully Jalen continues to pick it up because he has picked it up more since the Christmas time. Gordon Hayward needs to show more consistency. Hopefully, I think it would be good for Kyrie to milk whatever injury he has in terms of recovery. I hope that Terry imprints himself a little bit more.
Yeah.
And because
I don't like smart,
because
you know.
Terry's success comes with heavy minutes, and when Terry's succeeding, it's because he's playing a lot. And then you see him when he dials it back a little bit. If he comes back after a big stretch, if he plays 6 or 7 games, when we saw him last season and in the beginning of this year more so, when he has those 3 games after Kyrie comes back, he still keeps that same energy and that same strength
that's
and
hard,
that same
though.
mentality.
That's
It
hard
is
'cause his
hard.
minutes go.
It is hard, but he
I know.
on a big stretch where he performs well because
Yeah.
there's a hole in the rotation and he fills that hole. After that hole is filled and he returns to his previous spot, he maintains that same energy for a good amount of time, and I think that would be really good for the team. I'm very confident that this team can be a 3
One more
seed.
thing while I'm thinking about it, because my mind goes fast, as I think that block shot by Marcus Smart.
Best defensive player of the year.
Oh my God!
Best defensive player of the year.
If he's not defensive player of the year, almost on that play, that was an amazing defensive play by Marcus Smart.
I have him at number 2 in
Highest
my
level.
defensive
I think he's
player
going
of
to
the
get a
year.
lot of votes. Considering he
Yeah,
got a lot of
especially
votes
he's playing,
last
you know,
year
he's got the
as a
playing time.
reserve,
Yeah.
I
That's as
think
good
he-
defensive players
I
I've
think
ever
he's
seen.
gonna be up there.
I think he's number 2 on my bracket. All right, so the GOAT talk is more about LeBron's statement on his More Than an Athlete special that was aired on ESPN Plus, where he was sitting down with Mav and Rich Paul and a couple other people, and when his quote was, in that moment when I came back after
Don't
the
sugarcoat it.
in that moment when I came back 3-1 after that, and we made that victory, he said, "Wow, I really felt like I did something here. That right there, that makes you the best player of all time." That's what
Not
he
you,
said.
makes me. He said me.
Okay, whatever.
Well, you said you.
Okay, he's
But
talking
put it
about
in the
himself.
first person. I'm not dying on LeBron on this, but I just want it to be accurate.
He's talking about
he said
himself.
it makes me the greatest player of all time.
I don't want to have a discussion about who the greatest player of all
Okay.
time is. I want to have a discussion about how we feel about people that are in that discussion and how they talk about it.
Good.
And I think it's commonly understood that everyone that could be considered, whether it's Kareem or MJ or Bill Russell or Larry or Magic or Shaq
Kobe.
or Tim Duncan or not Kobe or whoever it is, I
Kobe-
think
he's in the conversation.
Kobe is. You're right. Kobe is included in what I'm about to say.
He's not-
Every single one of those players thinks they're the best player of all time. I think those people absolutely believe that.
They never actually said it.
Right,
though.
but I think that just because LeBron James said something that he honestly felt in a moment where he was the most happy probably in his entire life, when he's reflecting on that moment and he's revealing how he absolutely felt in that moment, I think he got way too much flacking in media for it.
I've never agreed with you more. I absolutely positively agree with you 100%. And I think one of the things that points out what you're saying is, I love the fact that it created a discussion, because you're hearing from all these people that are finally all saying something. Michael Jordan's talking, Kareem's talking, Isaiah's talking, Mikhail. They're all, you never heard that before in this discussion and what it was. And I think I agree with you 100%. And the fact that when you have this discussion, there's always the same 5 guys. That points it out. There's really nobody else. And why any of them can lay claim to that? And I think you're absolutely right. I think all of them would say it. It doesn't bother me that he said it.
Right. Okay. And about
He
It,
can
does,
lay
it
claim to
doesn't
that.
surprise me that he said it, but I could do without him saying it.
Would
to
it bother
begin
you if
with,
Michael
but-
Jordan said it?
yeah, but like it's just
It wouldn't bother me if Michael Jordan
exactly.
said it. It wouldn't bother me if Kareem said it.
Exactly.
It
I
wouldn't
don't
bother me
care.
if Bill Russell said
Exactly.
it. Those
And
5 can say
those
it.
guys I
Even-
just said-
I include Larry. Not everybody does.
It would annoy me.
Probably bother me.
It would annoy me if like Kobe said
Yeah.
it because I don't think he deserves to be in that conversation. But like I
But
wouldn't
he's
be,
outside the
I wouldn't be
conversation.
surprised if he said it. But the thing is that like if you go back, my least favorite part about the conversation that was really fostered out of this statement from LeBron was all of these people coming and showing interviews of Michael Jordan talking about the greatest player of all time, and it was the biggest baloney that I've ever seen. And they were showing interviews with Michael Wilbon, and they were showing interviews where there was clippets from his future documentary that's going to come out, or they were showing post-game pressers from 1992, and every single one had a dramatic flaw to the debate that they were saying Michael Jordan would never say this. In the interview with Michael Wilbon, he went on saying, I could never compare myself to the players before me. I didn't play against Wilt and Bill Russell, so how could I say I'm better than them? Completely leaving out players that he did play against because he obviously is saying that he's better than those players, and he knows that he's better than those players, and it's like petty and pedantic for him to just step around
agree.
it to try to be the higher person. I think it's disingenuine the way that he went about it. And although, yes, I understand people's point of view is saying, well, even if you do think you are the best player of all time, you don't say it. I'd rather have someone be honest and say that they think they're the best player of all time than someone be dishonest and be a complete doofus about it.
Kyrie hit the biggest shot in that series. though.
So
That's
what?
hilarious.
LeBron James did 99% of the steps to get them there.
I think 2 things. One thing that
99%.
LeBron,
Wow. Okay.
and
What's the point of
I
team
agree with you,
basketball?
is that I don't think winning, and James is correcting me on this a little bit, but I don't think I ever said this, but I don't think LeBron winning in Cleveland defines greatest of all time. I just think that's convoluted to say that is what makes me the greatest player of all time. I don't really get that.
I think it's full. His argument is a full
The other thing I
basketball
would
resume.
say that kind of struck me about this whole conversation is that one site I looked at, they had 21 of the all-time greats, and I can't even remember who did, but the consensus was Jordan.
Yeah,
And
of course.
11 out of, and nobody else got more than 3 or 4. So that's interesting too, that the consensus is Michael Jordan. I think LeBron's got the right to say it, but it looks like, Jordan's the guy. If you're going to have a vote on it, it's going to be Jordan.
Jordan is regaled. He's basketball royalty. He's looked up to by everyone that's ever played. And
Yeah, but they look up to Kareem.
and it's
And Kareem can lay claim.
it's different. And I urge people that whatever side of the discussion that you're on, whether obviously the majority of people that are educated on the topic do say Jordan,
Yep.
and that's fine. I urge people to go and watch as many Michael Jordan games as you can. Maybe watch 3 in a week, and then watch a LeBron James game right after.
And you said you
right
don't want to
after,
have that
right
discussion.
after.
It's a bigger discussion than we've had.
That's what I'm
discussion,
saying,
so I'm
that's what
not
I'm
going to
saying.
continue. It would get me going to talk about that.
We can
I
spin
watched
it.
Michael much of my childhood. Still the greatest in my eyes. Let's talk MVP.
All right, so the most valuable player race in the beginning of the season, based off of his statistics and his team's success, that has continued consistently throughout. Giannis was believed to be the overlord of the NBA that was taking over. Since then, more players have a claim at the title for MVP. My order is Giannis still at number 1. I have number 2, James Harden. Over the past, I believe it's 16 games now, he's averaging over 37 points. He's been an absolute lunatic. He went on a stretch where they won 11 of 12 games with him having several 40-point triple-doubles, a couple 150-point game, and he's been absolutely nuclear. It was obviously culminated in that game-winning overtime shot against Golden State. If he continues this stretch that he's on recently, I do think that he'll have a legitimate chance of winning back-to-back MVPs, but I still think that the full resume, the full order that Giannis has had since beginning of season to now of still having the best record in the East, I think that he has there. But then filling out my top 5, I have Jokic at 3, number 1 seed in the Western Conference, best player on that team. And I have a surprising Paul George at number 4, and then I have LeBron James at 5.
Nice.
Okay, I've got LeBron as the MVP, and from what I'm seeing happening right now, to me he is.
You can make that argument, yeah.
I think Kawhi is the second.
He's
I
my
got
sixth.
I got Kawhi at number 2, and I like what's happened there. I think Steph Curry. It's amazing how valuable he is, and as you see Boogie Cousins come back, and if we talk about it, well, if we have time, we'll talk about that. But the glue there, the important thing is Steph, and Steph being healthy. He is, to me, he's number 3 on most valuable. Giannis, I got number 4. I put Harden at 5 and rising.
Yes.
And the 2 other guys I see that are rising is Jokic has really risen in mine, and I think Oladipo's risen too.
How do you not have Giannis in the top 3?
Well, look who you got. You got
Well,
Kawhi,
it's-
Curry,
they're
and
number
LeBron.
one.
I mean,
They're number 1 in the East.
He clearly,
Yeah.
no, it's all about what you factor into how you evaluate what MVP means.
Kawhi's
So
stuff
clearly-
for you,
he-
it doesn't matter
no,
if he misses.
exactly.
Like LeBron's
Well,
missed more time than he's ever missed
but I
in
think
his
it's
career.
pointed out how valuable
Exactly.
he is.
No, he clearly is. When you're there, if your team succeeds, in addition to when you're
If
not
LeBron's
there, if your
out the
team
rest of the
fails.
season, obviously.
And maybe I feel like you probably compound the fact that Cleveland is so bad. Does that help LeBron's case as well?
Well, I think.
So I mean, he's thinking about those things. That's fine.
Giannis is just still such an integral part of that.
Right,
You
I
know,
have-
best,
So
best
Buttonholz
team
is
in
like
the
an
East.
integral
I
part
mean,
too. And
He's playing great defense. He's grabbing rebounds like a monster. And I don't know. Jokic, I agree with you, is number 3. He could move even further up if he keeps it up because he's scoring when they need him to score. He's always making the right pass. He's
Oh
a
my God, that
triple-double
touchdown
monster.
pass was crazy.
He's just incredible. He's incredible
see
to
that
watch.
pass?
by who?
The Jokic 1 rebound pass and turn, just full sling, full court.
No, I haven't seen that
He
one.
got
should've- I
one-handed
should've-
rebound, turns around maybe 1 step, full court swing, just a quarterback throw. It was incredible. Right into breadbasket of Jamal Murray, right underneath the other rim.
I should have never traded him to Logan.
No, it was idiotic. It was idiotic. It was
And I
very
regret
stupid.
ever saying that. I didn't think he was as good as everybody
He
saying
wasn't
he was. 'cause
scoring
he's a
like
tremendous
he is
player.
now when I
He's
traded
a
him.
tremendous player.
Bad
But
news.
I think Kawhi's in the top 5 too.
Yeah, I have Kawhi at 6.
I really don't mind Paul George in that top 5.
I like Paul George there too.
Paul George is
Paul
my
George would be like having a similar impact if he was on Toronto instead
Yes,
of Kawhi.
I agree with you. I think that Paul George, right at this year, we said Marcus Smart a second earlier. Paul George is my pick for defensive player. I know that's not a thing we're talking about, but he's my pick for defensive player of the year so far this season. We've seen the typical big men that are in that conversation take a step back defensively this year in terms of their impact on the game, and we've seen Paul George be an absolute lightning rod for this Thunder defense, and he's the front leader of that team, being a top defense in the entire NBA, while also putting up plus 30 in the past month and really being able to handle an offensive load while Russell Westbrook struggles offensively. And I've loved what I've seen from him. Hopefully he can continue into the playoffs and not throw up another dud like he did last season with his playoff P foils.
He won't.
We can switch it up.
Carmelo was disease.
All right, let's get to our All-Star team. So the Eastern Conference and Western Conference, you got 2 guards, 3 forwards to start, same layout in the bench, and then you got 2 wild cards. I don't know if you did that or not. Who cares?
didn't do it that way,
That's
no.
fine. Let's start with the Western Conference. My Western Conference starters are James Harden and Curry at the guards, and then I have LeBron, Paul George, and Jokic at the forwards. Obviously, it kind of matches up with your MVP discussion. If someone's in your MVP discussion, they're probably going to start in the All-Star game. And then continuing to the bench, I have Lillard and Westbrook as my guards on the bench. And I have Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, and Karl Anthony Towns as my forwards. And my 2 wild card players are Luka Doncic and De'Aaron Fox for the All-Star game. How does your Western Conference team look?
Luka Doncic and De'Aaron Fox.
That's right.
Okay. I didn't do wild card.
That's fine.
Players.
Well, it's bench and, yeah.
I have. I think it's quite similar. I have Giannis.
No, that's the East.
That's the East. Oh, in the West, I've got Steph Curry,
It's really a no-brainer.
James Harden, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and I originally had Davis, but in the past 2 weeks, it's changed out to Jokic.
Yep.
So it's crazy to put Davis as a reserve,
Yeah,
but you know what?
that's where he lands.
The West is stacked. So
I got DeRozan on
the team.
On the team, and other than that, it's similar enough where you really don't. And I actually I ended up including Doncic, and I wasn't going to do that for a while. I'm looking at the West, and you almost can make 2 All-Star teams out of the West compared to
Yes.
1 All-Star team in the East. And I'm wondering why, with the way that they're going to draft the players anyway, why don't they just pick 24 players and then let them pick instead of isolating? Because look at the guys. I mean,
So who are your West-
Aldridge doesn't make it. Gobert doesn't make it. Holiday doesn't make it. Conley doesn't make it. Harris doesn't make it. Fox doesn't make it. Adams, Mitchell. Look at these players. Gallinari.
Westbrook might,
No, he's going to
Yeah.
make it.
He'll make it. So I got Westbrook, Karl Anthony Towns, Damian Lillard. Tobias Harris, I think, deserves a spot.
yeah.
Best
Well,
player
but I
on
mean,
the
who's
Clippers.
It's just like it's so interesting because if you do the thought process where you're looking through playoff teams and you're saying this team needs a player, it needs a representative in the All-Star game, I can't go about it by that way.
Yeah, I can't
because
either.
there's too many good players, and just because the New Orleans Pelicans are struggling and they're the 12th seed, I'm going to recognize Anthony Davis over Tobias Harris. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
just like I can't
Me too.
I can't factor in record over how good I know a player is.
Yeah.
By the way, can we please get rid of the fan vote or at least knock it down
they're
to
so bad.
25%?
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Because the
They're so
fact
bad.
that we're
Fans are so
talking
stupid.
about Dwayne Wade potentially taking a spot from Kemba
Well,
Walker
I think
is ridiculous.
I think
He's
that-
not even starting.
I think that coaches and the players are gonna balance it out. I think that they understand that Derrick Rose can't be a starter in the All-Star game.
Derrick
Okay?
Rose is even starting. Dwayne
To
starts
the
some
Eastern
games,
Conference,
but-
my starters are Kyrie Irving, Bradley Beal, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, and Joel Embiid. And then my reserves are Kemba Walker, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Blake Griffin, Pascal Siakam, Victor Oladipo, and then I had a really hard time with my 12th spot, and I went back and forth between Middleton and Tatum, but I wanted to give Tatum some hometown shine, so I threw Tatum in the All-Star game.
But Middleton's on the #1 team in the East.
Yeah, he's.
That is absolute homerism.
Nah, it's okay.
It is a little bit.
I'm okay with it.
Almost consistently with that. I love Siakam, that everybody's kind of looking at him. I picked him over Lowry if they're going to take a second guy from Toronto. But
Lowry's missed
the
a lot of
player
games,
that, to me, Beal just about made it for me, and he's playing really well.
should be reserved.
But the player that I think that you didn't name that I think is an all-star is Vukovic. I think Vukovic has been. I know you don't like him,
Yeah,
but we just saw him play. He demolished Al Horford. I mean, Al Horford could not play him defensively, and he's doing it game in and game out. His shooting percentages are through the roof. He shoots foul shots through the roof.
Just think about him in an All-Star
7
game.
feet
Think about him
tall.
in an All-Star game.
I'm
so lame. So
well, in
lame.
the East. In the East. I mean,
Yeah, but like,
the guys that get snubbed, the Middleton. I think Marcus Morris
Yeah.
gets snubbed. You
Yeah,
know,
but just think about it. Think if you traded Vucevic for Middleton, you traded Vucevic for Tatum. Like those guys would be all-star starters. Like it's just like that's
who would be all-star starter?
Tatum. If
Because
Tatum
he's
was
playing with Orlando?
If Tatum was on Orlando instead of Vucevic,
That's
not
easy
only
to
would
say.
Orlando be better, but
The
Tatum would
fact
average like
is that
26 a
Vukovic
game.
is doing it, and he's
I don't think a team that's not even in the playoffs should be a starter
I
in the
love how
All-Star
he
game
plays.
anyway.
No, maybe not.
Again,
but,
I
we
don't,
just saw him play.
I
mean,
don't care. I think Orlando stinks. I think that Vucevic is doing very well at capitalizing on an opportunity on a weak team that really came out of the gates hot and
deserves
surprised
to
me.
be
He can
reserved.
play.
He
He can
deserves-
play. The
he
guy can
deserves to
play.
be
Yeah,
an
He
he's
plays
a-
with great
he's a
energy.
fan-
He
he's a
rebounds
fantastic
hard.
backup center. Fantastic backup center.
He's much better than that.
He's going to be a fantastic
I
backup
know.
center.
At least you've come a little ways to include him as a backup. I think he's an all-star.
He's an All-Star,
I
absolutely.
really hope he's not.
Yeah, I got Giannis Embiid, Kawhi, Kyrie, and I put Ben Simmons because his numbers are still, even though he's having kind of a down year for him, I put him in there as well. Kemba, Blake, Victor Oladipo, Vucevic, Chris Middleton.
But when you look at the guys that are
good-looking
left
team.
off compared to the West, it's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
the West has got like 15 guys
West
that are
is
left off.
stacked.
The East has got like 3 or 4 that you
They
think.
should do something cool with like the final 2 spots or the final 1 spot. Maybe they should do like something like the
Capella
MLB
gets
does.
left off, you know.
It's not as I
They
feel like
should do like a final vote for the
right.
fans.
Obviously,
Yeah.
obviously there's a
How's
disparity.
that weighted? I forget. The
50.
fans.
Fans
vote.
get
50%.
50%.
And then it's
And then
25.
the
Watch out for Dwayne Wade.
coaches,
25,
players,
25.
media.
Dwayne Wade might get in.
Well, the players might vote him
Yeah.
in just because
Yeah.
they have
So-
so much respect for him. He's a
Yeah.
3-time champion.
I think the
But what about Dirk?
I think the disparity.
Wow. Hey, can I just say something about Dirk?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we found a lot of players through the years that had played 1 year too long and had the worst demise.
yes.
I think that's the worst. That game in Boston, that's got to be the worst demise I've
so
ever
sad.
seen.
It was so
I mean, the
sad.
guy's the best player of all time, one of the best players of all time. He should not have been out there doing that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was.
It-
awful.
it really reminded
and the fans
me
are
of-
cheering him as he's missing another one. Come on, give him the lump shooting it all the way down to the last
It
possession.
really
and
reminded
he's
me of.
still shooting them.
I used to play
that
on an
was-
undefeated CYO team in
Oh, that
eighth,
was
in eighth
awful.
grade.
That was awful. That was painful.
And we went 20-0, but we had this one guy. It was like one of my neighbors, and we'd bring him in once we were up by like
And
20
try to
or
get him to
something.
score.
And everybody would be like, Misha, Misha. We'd
It
try
was
to get
awful.
Misha to
That's what it
score,
felt
and
like.
he never scored.
yeah,
it
but
felt
this
like the
guy's a
same
Hall
thing.
of Famer. We felt that
one
way
thing
about
to
him.
close out the All-Star discussion, I do think that the judgment on the disparity between what the East All-Stars and West All-Stars is going to be, it goes a little bit too far. I think that there's a 2-player gap from what I can tell, that I think if you take out the bottom 2 players, so my bottom 2 players in the Eastern Conference ballot are Pascal Siakam and Jason Tatum. I think every other single player in the Eastern Conference deserves an all-star spot, whether they had a full slot and you could choose from the entire team.
That's not where the disparity is, though, Shea. What the disparity is that when you take those 2 guys off, there's 15 guys in the West that could take those 2 spots. There might not be a guy in the East.
Well, I think, again, I do think that the strength of those players down there, I think it does get overstated. I mean, Conley started the year really strong.
Donovan Mitchell.
Since then, he's performed really bad. Donovan Mitchell has been extremely hot and cold and inconsistent all year. He makes highlights, but he's
Harris, Capella.
I don't know.
Holiday.
I think it's overstated.
Aldridge.
Yeah, I don't care. I think it's
McCollum.
overstated.
Those sound like
Klay
people who will be
Thompson.
kept
Klay
off of
Thompson's
the
had a
team.
bad year.
Oh, not now. His shot's back.
He's
Those aren't
He's
all-stars.
averaged 26 a game for his last
Yeah, because he had
He's
45.
back. He's back.
Those weren't all-stars.
Clay's back.
We'll close it out with a quick discussion on what was left with
Boogie.
and we'll do some other injuries afterwards. DeMarcus Cousins, it's the 14th today. That means we're 4 days away from DeMarcus Cousins' return to the basketball court. How do you see this hurting, helping, exciting the Warriors? Do you think it makes them better throughout the rest of the season, or what do you think happens?
You know, I don't like Boogie anymore like Carmelo, but this works, and they're replacing Looney and with Boogie and the low post, offensive rebounds, and low post play. He's going to start right away. I think the key again is Steph Curry. If Steph Curry can integrate Kevin Durant in that team, I think he may be able to integrate Boogie into that team. One point, Jerebko had an Achilles injury. Jerebko says that he blew his out. Took him 14 months of hard rehab. I don't know whether I think of Boogie and hard rehab, so I'm a little worried about what he's really got when he gets out there on the court. But with Clay's shot back, the only negative on that team is that Dre seems to be losing his magic.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some growing pains with the initial transition to getting him in there, and I think he's going to be on a minute limit for a little bit.
He's probably going to only play less than 20 minutes for the first 10, 15 games. Maybe he'll get up to 25 by the end of the season.
I think as long as he doesn't hawk up too many three-pointers of his own, I think they should be all right.
Low post
Because
and
he could help defensively and he could help with rebounds.
I think that he is going to fit in perfectly
he is
with
too.
the Steph Curry DNA of that court, and I think that he's going to help them fill the weaknesses that they used to have when they were at their prime levels. Maybe less so now, but what he offers is something that they didn't have. And I think my expectations for the 2019-2020 Warriors, I think they have a very strong shot of losing Kevin Durant, and because of that, willing to pay more money to keep DeMarcus Cousins, and then shopping Draymond Green for several smaller pieces. And I think if they come into next year and their starting lineup is something that is Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and maybe they trade Draymond to the Kings for Bogdanovich and somebody, and they start 3 guys and they didn't have Boogie, that's a better team than I think that they have
I think
this
one
year.
mistake that bothers me a lot is that you constantly look, whether it's Carmelo or Boogie or Butler or whoever it is, you pass this all the time. And I just got to continually, until he actually shows me something that he's overcome that. I mean, he's got a lot of
But
baggage.
he's going to be motivated to prove the people that didn't offer
we
him
gotta
a
see
contract wrong. I'm excited to see him
It could
play.
go south.
It could absolutely go south, but I think that he's going to offer something big.
He fits.
To transition to the other sides of injury, we haven't talked since John Wall went down with season-ending injury. Now he won't play again until his $40+ million contract kicks in.
Nothing helped that team more.
Exactly, that was the point. This team hasn't been fantastic without him, but they've been better than they were for the stretch that had him there. We've seen Beal really rise to the scene. He's had 2 40-point triple-doubles since John Wall's gone down. I think that this team looks like they're going to be inching to playoff contention. That we'll see whether there's someone you need to worry about on the 8 or 9 seed. And then a more recent injury, Clint Capella is going to now be out for a month and a half. Ooh. And again, we saw Chris Paul go down, and people say, well, they were already struggling. They're already out of the playoff picture. I think this really hurts them. I'm not picking them out of the playoffs. But then we had Harden go on this stretch. Can Harden continue to carry them higher than their stretches?
You're seeing teams actually design defenses for Harden. You see the one where they play him completely on his right side and push him on, make sure he goes right, even if it's a walk into the lane.
He had a terrible game, and he had 42 points.
Yeah, he went for 17 for 3, which is a record.
That was
okay, and terrible game 42.
Yeah,
that's how
against the
playing.
Bucks, he was 13 for 30, and he still scored 42.
You just don't see players. Kareem was one of them where you actually have to think about designing defenses to play James Harden.
His step back 3 is going to go down in NBA history as one of the most unstoppable moves, right next to Shaq post up and Dirk fade and Hakeem shimmy and all of
maybe
those
the
things.
best.
All of those
Kareem's
things.
skyhook.
Skyhook. Kareem skyhook.
I think skyhook's one.
All of those things. Harden's step back is right in there in that
Harden-
same
Harden-
area with those generational, all-time legendary moves. Harden's step back is there, and it's really crazy. He's taking I think he's taken or made over something like 200 setbacks or something ridiculous like that. And the next highest is actually Luka Doncic. And it's so
Really?
interesting in terms of the most effective and dangerous move of the most dangerous scores seems to be that step back.
Yeah.
When you look at
And before him,
And he's so
that's his move.
smooth.
no one has done it to the
He's so
volume.
smooth.
to the degree
He
that
lulls
does
the
it.
refs to sleep.
Oh, my
Sometimes
God.
he even doubles up the steps.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
4 steps, and it looks so nice
Well, it's so
still.
smooth. If you
It
read-
looks so
so smooth.
like poetic.
If you read the definition on traveling, it is unnecessarily ambiguous.
Well, as many other things are in the NBA,
that's right.
especially in terms of traveling.
That's right. All right.
when I see you do 2 steps forward, 2 steps back,
Oh,
you're
that,
dancing.
I mean, that was
That's
amazing.
not
No-
ambiguous.
well, there's that one.
None of the
was
coaches,
very bad.
nobody,
That was
nobody thought that was wrong, which
Right.
is you're
Well,
absolutely
I mean,
right.
the refs came up and owned up to that. They were like, "This was obviously
Yeah.
a travel." But I mean, his
Even
other,
the- even the opposing
coaches
coach was
didn't
like-
point it out.
his
nobody-
other ones, you see him and they're like, "That was a travel."
amazing.
But then they show a replay and you're like, "I think it was a travel." And
It's
then-
very
you know what
hard
I
to
mean?
tell because he's got such control of that ball
He
in
does
his
it so fast.
body. That dance is amazing.
What do you think? Do you think that they can stay in the top 6 seed? Can
It
they
surprised me so far with Paul
Stay, can they
out.
stay a top
so-
6 seed? Top 6 seed.
No.
I think,
6 seed.
I think yes.
I think yes. I think yes. I mean, right now they're the 4.
Especially with the Lakers slide.
I think that they will be 6th.
Yeah.
They're going to be the 6th seed. I think that's why I put the
Okay.
line. I think they're going to be the
I
6th
think
seed.
there'll be 7 or 8.
Wheels turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go